Good morning. Welcome to the Adult Sunday School class of Eastern Avenue on the 23rd of March. Are you enjoying spring? I haven't seen some of you since last winter. Amen. Let me get this over with. Brother Paul Wren told me I have teeth like the stars. They come out at night. All right, I got that over with. The teeth pulling was not bad at all. It's getting used to them. So, all right, good news. We got a special speaker this morning, all the way from God's country. And I'm not talking about West Virginia. All right. Okay, I'm from North Carolina, Lenore. Yeah. All right. If you'll get settled there. Okay, I almost forgot your name. We got the Matneys. Dad is Jody, and then the son Josh, the pastor from Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Now, Jody's coming to Dad to share with us this morning. He'll take questions about Spruce Pine and I imagine what happened during Helene. He'll tell you what's going on now, probably what's still needed to get through it. From where I'm from in Carolina, they're still cleaning up. So keep praying for that part of the country. Let's look to the Lord in prayer before we bring our guest up. Brother Steve Barber, you take us to the throne of grace, please. Amen. Brother, you come on up. Be nice with the questions, please. All right.
Well, it sure is great to be here. I thank the Lord just for the privilege and the opportunity. Lord's been good to us, each and every one, and I just want to say a special thanks just for Brother Jim, Tony, obviously picking us up and bringing us back out here last night. Let me try to get this set up. But I also just want to say thanks to each and every one that gave and helped out, with bringing supplies up to North Carolina during that time. It was greatly appreciated. God's timing is always right on time. And we don't want to forget like what you did for us. I know the Bible says love your neighbor, and you all did that. And for that we're thankful. So sometimes you gave and you helped and you didn't maybe firsthand get to be there and see the effects of it, but every time someone gave and did what you all did, it just kept the momentum going, and people even today are still feeling the effects of what you all did. Trust me, like it made a difference. So we are so grateful for all that y'all did and all that you gave and all the help that you did for us. So I'm going to kind of get started and we'll go through a few things. So first off, I'd like to say the Sunday school teacher that introduced me there, I mean, he was right on target when he first said from God's country, because I'm actually from West Virginia. So, so he was right on. So he was right. But no, we are from North Carolina, and I'm just going to give a few thoughts, read a scripture here, then give it just a few thoughts, and then I'll be glad to answer any and all questions. And if I get stumped on some of them, I'll turn those over to the pastor or my son. But Bible says over there in Proverbs 27:1 says, "Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth." And me and my wife, we're kind of one that we're kind of unplugged from TV, and we don't really have a cable or anything of that nature. So a lot of times, if something's coming, we usually hear about it from word of mouth or something. So she had went to work, and they kept saying, now, like, if you don't make it to work tomorrow, if it's too bad, and she's like, I know y'all keep talking about a storm or we're going to get some rain or something, but I don't understand what y'all getting so worked up about. And honestly, when you think about, like, okay, the mountains of North Carolina, I mean, you really, I grew up in West Virginia. We did have storms and flooding there, just like they recently had. But you don't really, you never expect it to be like what we saw. So we were just kind of like, well, it's going to rain and storm. It's already been raining, but it's amazing, like, when you think about, like, it says, "Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth." And we never did think, like, September 27th, like, what that day was going to bring forth. So, we got up that morning, and it was definitely raining, and the wind was definitely blowing, and we'd got up pretty early, and looked out the window. I went out and walked my dogs some, and they were having a good time in the wind and all that, but got back in, and I think at that time I did hear some trees, swaying and cracking around the house, and it started raining a little bit worse, and I was like, well, the Bible talks about he that watcheth over Israel never slumbers or sleeps. I said, so no need for me to stay up as well. So I just went ahead, and me and my wife, we laid back down, and it was really uncommon, but we slept an additional probably 3 or 4 hours, and I just feel like the Lord just did that for us. So we woke up, slept through the most part of the storm, and I said, well, let's go out and just kind of see how everything is. And as we initially pulled out, it was not really too bad. We did have several trees, which, we have some pretty large trees around the outer perimeter of our property. We had several trees down, so I was like, well, it was pretty bad. So we immediately drove down. Obviously, our first goal was to check on our son and his family to make sure they were okay. So as we drove down Highway 19, we started seeing more trees down, but on the main road, like, it was just a lot of, you could see a lot of rain had hit, and there was some trees. So once we got, like, close to his home, there's it's a 2-lane going both ways, and there's a pretty major, it's a bridge there. I say a major bridge, it's just because it's a big gully, but, normally you could just kind of get down, and if you wanted to, you could walk through the water there. It's not like, it would maybe be knee deep, but from the bridge to the water was probably, I would say, 20-some feet. So as we got to the bridge this morning, or at noontime by this time, there was a house trying to come over the bridge. The water had gotten up, and we're like, you see it, and you just can't really, like, comprehend what you're seeing. Like, we couldn't get that close, so I was like, well, we can try the side road. Well, I tried the side road, and it was just washed out with mud, and the water was up, and you couldn't go any farther. And it was like, man, this is bad. This is a lot worse than what we thought. So we went back and we had attempted to go down another road to cut through, and it was impossible to pass at the time because there was just so many trees that you could not get through. And so we turned around and went back and said, well, let's go check on downtown Spruce Pine because that's where my wife worked. Same way, she worked on what they call Lower Street, and you can go in there and see it and have coffee and look out and you see the railroad tracks and at that time I get that Toe River, or I think it's Toe River, but there again you can wade and fish in that, and it's not that hard. But from the restaurant you can't even visually see it. It's probably a couple hundred yards away. I would say 100, 150 yards away, and so we headed that direction, and at that point there was probably, I would say, 20 feet of water, 15 feet of water that had risen into the restaurant, and it was just, but when you think about the distance that it had to cover to get to that point to raise that high is just what just can't really comprehend. So the whole lower street was just pretty much washed away, and there is restaurants and little businesses that won't come back. Some of them has already said that they won't. So we initially, we got back out. Let me back up just. So we initially tried to get in one direction to the town, and that's when it really man, this is terrible. So I drove down this one side road going to the Ingles. That was our only little grocery store besides Walmart. And I got probably, I don't know, eighth of a mile from the store, and the water had came up that high, and the water was up to, they have a gas station there, and the water was up to the $2.87 or whatever the price of the gas was at that time. The water was up to the letters on the sign. And it was just, and then you look to the left, and I'm like, I had to turn around, and the water was right there. And you at that point, you're like, well, I don't know if the water's washed out the road under me or not. So we were kind of in a panic to get turned around a little bit. So we turned around and went back and tried to drive around a little. It was and we soon realized we were, that day, we tried to drive around and check on things, but everywhere you drove just about it, you were just cut off from the world, so to speak, because there was no, the trees were down everywhere, or there was slides in the road, and the mud was covering it. And obviously there was no cell service, there were no power, there were no water, and just for there, that was definitely very uncommon. So we had spent most of that day just trying to get to them, or try to see if we could get somewhere to get some service to call them, and it didn't work out. So the next day, it was kind of pretty much a lot of the same. And we finally, I think it was the third day, were able to get in touch. They were okay. I'm not sure how we got word to someone that they were okay. So at that point, we're like, well, we need to try to get some supplies and water and things up here. So what normally we would drive to, the town of Hickory, would be probably an hour and 20 minutes. We took 3 different routes to finally try to get off the mountain, and I think by the end of the day it took us about 12 or 14 hours to get down and come back. It was just an all-day affair. You would get so far and you couldn't go no farther. You get so far, you couldn't go no farther. So, but needless to say, we made it off, come back, and then we kind of got to that point, on that third day, we found out they were okay, and still no water, still no power, and I had found a little stream it was just so much water still coming off. There's a stream coming off on the mountain, so I was like, we were packing 5-gallon buckets of water out of that to take home to use in the toilets or whatever. Some of my West Virginia kicked in at that point. We're going to get water and at least get toilets going here somehow. So, but at that point, we were sitting around, and my wife, she had asked me that question, she said, what are we going to do? And we've kind of like hung on to this ever since then. And I said, well, we can sit around and we can find problems, or we can get busy and we can find a purpose. And it's always much better to find a purpose, So there was a lot of people in need, a lot of neighbors, our neighbors locally in need. So we checked on them. I got a call at that point. My nephew had sent a message, and this is probably like 5 days in. We had found a spot. Like, it was kind of funny. Like, you could go up to this one top of the mountain under the bridge at the Parkway, and we figured out like you could get service there if you walked to the right spot and you stood in the right place and you held your phone up with your hand over here and all that. So we were starting to get some texts out, and we figured it out. Well, next thing you know, you got like, imagine an aerial view. If there was an aerial view, you'd see this big blue light, because there was, a couple hundred people up there at night with all their phones out trying to walk around and get service. So it was pretty funny. But he had sent a message, like some of his cousin was, they didn't, they were really concerned. They had gotten word that this one area is hit bad, which is called Pensacola. So I said, well, give me an address and I'll do my best to check on it. So that's what I did. Like, I got the address. We had went to Walmart. I bought a big cooler. I loaded it full of drinks with water, sodas, ice. We made a bunch of subs up, and we went to that area looking for his family. Like, and the first road, like, it was just, you could not get there. And the other guys, like, they were on four-wheelers. He's like, well, you can try to follow me in. We'll get to the fire department. So I was like, well, okay, I can follow you. I thought like, well, I've got a four-wheel drive truck, shouldn't be a problem. So, and honestly, when this is like probably, I don't know, day 5, somewhere in there, we'll say, I really thought like there was no roads at that point. Like, where the road typically was, like, you would drive, like, the road was their yard, the grass was up here, and the cab of my truck was probably here. So it was washed out that much. So basically we're driving right next to where the creek is now. And it was just, I thought it was going to rip the bumpers off of my truck. It was just that bad. And then you get up there and you start seeing, which a lot of people on the mountains, like, man, the water is, it's a stream. I mean, some of these areas, that's just what, like, the stream maybe at some points might have been normally wide as the pulpit here. So nothing like, but then to see like that to swell up, 20 and 30 feet high, and just to spread out the width of, a football field or 2 football fields in places. And even the people that were way up high, like, I'm sure they thought like, well, we are fine because we're up high. But then we kept going, and then you would see where mudslides would have hit. And it was like some of them, and I could see in Brother Jim some of these pictures at some point. I don't know if I ever did. I apologize if I didn't. But the slides were from the top of the mountain down, and you would have homes that were hit and just pushed almost. Some of them were pushed. Some of them were pushed across the roads in certain areas, and it was just so devastating. And I just actually, like 2 weeks ago, one of the homes that comes to mind, I actually went back by, and they were. This lady's been denied FEMA 5 times. Like, it's just so crazy. I mean, there is no home. She's no insurance, and she's still living in a camper down there, and still heating with the propane, the buddy heaters that were so graciously given, but just to speak with her again, and just 6 months along, and just to hear in her voice, like, what am I going to do? You know. But you do have people still there trying to help her. They're working on trying to build. There was she had like a little outbuilding. It was a little bit larger than your normal outbuilding, so they're trying to convert that into a home, get it fixed up. So, because she's like, I'm gonna have. Basically, she's gonna have to do something, you know, and it's just heartbreaking to see that, like, you know. But it's just so widespread. Some of those things, like, it just you just see so many of those stories. So, but we saw her home. We just, like, we didn't even know, like, we couldn't imagine she lived. But after we got up into there, and as time went on, we heard how, and she showed me the table. She was, as the home was pushed down the mountainside, she was thrown, she said, under this kitchen table, which had cast iron legs on it and a cast iron circular top. So I'd say she was placed under there by God. God's grace and mercy placed her under there. And that's what saved her from being crushed, basically. So, but as we went on up through there, we made it to the fire department, and it was just, you know, as we seen so much, it was just God's time. When we got to the fire department, the gentleman Jody that was on the four-wheeler, he introduced me to the fire chief, and I was talking to him, and I gave him the family's name that I was looking for, and he said they're okay. He said they were actually just here, and we gave them some water, and they may still be over. They had just left, so we had just missed them, but that gave us peace about that they were okay. So we were able to let the mom and the family know that they were okay. But at that point, you know, at the fire department there, we were like, you know, what can we do to help, you know? And so that's kind of where it began for us. And as I said, like, we had brought food in, and we had brought, and I still have my cooler in my truck to this day, like, and I, you know, when we first got there, like on day 5, 6, and 7, and 8, like, I remember one night we got in there, and it was getting dark, and honestly, there was a gentleman and his wife got there, and this was like I say 5, 6, or 7, and they literally looked like they had just dug them out of the mud, and they were just a mess, man. It was terrible. But you hand some, it's amazing, like, and the one gentleman even said, he's like, so he's probably was my age, and I asked him if he wanted a cold drink, and I said, I got Pepsi, Coke, Mountain. He said it was probably like Mountain Dew. He's like, are you kidding me? He said, I'm getting giddy like a teenager over a Mountain Dew drink here. He said, like, you don't, and he says, I want to start crying and hug her neck, and it was just amazing. We had I remember a lady, like, we you know, was talking to and offered her, and it was just like, even just a cold can of drink or something of that nature, when they had been through and saw what they saw, was just gave them a little bit of hope that help was coming, you know, even if it was starting within the form of a Coke. I didn't get much Pepsi because I'm a Coke person. I apologize. So, but yeah, and it was just so amazing. Like, those little things, like, just brought a smile, or even brought tears to their eyes. Like, it was just overwhelming. So we just started saying, like, what can we do? What can we do? And just from there on, we just started. It was just amazing how, like, you know, we kind of got word out, and how God's people, you know, I would say, like, we were there, and, you know, for the first 2 months, like, bringing supplies in and cooking food. For the first 2 months, probably, it was just like, I would say it was just like a blur, really. because you would be up really early. You know, a lot of times we would start cooking around 6:30 in the morning. We were outside on a little Coleman grill. You know, when you think about like getting good at camping and over a little Coleman stove, man, we got a lot of practice. So you cook about 25 dozen eggs a day every morning for about 2 months. You get pretty good at whisking and frying and scrambling some eggs. So, but for the first 2 months, it was just almost like I say, a blur, because you do that all day. You get home like 6, 7 o'clock at night, and at that point, I'm really not worrying about, like, you know, I think I'll eat me a bowl of cereal and lay down and just go to sleep and get back up and go at it. So, but through all that, man, it was just like you saw so much of God's people showing up. Like, if I was to say, I personally, like, and we were right like at one of the main areas that Camp Miller, they called it, that was bringing supplies and feeding the community, getting clothing out, getting tents, blankets, food. If I was the person, the only thing I know that we got help from FEMA or the government was one big blue tent that we used for the mess hall, so to speak, to feed everyone in. And then I think it was January, like at the start of January, they had sent word they wanted their tent back. So I will say this is how it worked, though. That day, I think it was a church out of Virginia had showed up, and Brian, one of the gentlemen that I know good, he came in and he had been helping tremendously. They came in and was talking to Brian and said, look, you know, we got some supplies here, we got this, we got that, and we got this really large tent. It could be like a command center tent for you. And at that point, they had transitioned to another property and was going to use the blue tent. They didn't know they were not going to have that. So he said, no, I think we're good. We really don't need it. Give it to someone. And they's like, no, we're putting this up. Like, we brought this for you. You can put a stove in it. So they put it up and set it up, and it was just like that day they got word that they want their blue tent back. So it was just amazing how God's people showed up right on time so many times. I can't tell you, it'd be like, I'd say Christian, because he was a super good guy. I would encourage you, like, I think he lives in Florida, Christian Hickey. But his family's a missionary family, and he's ex-military, special ops, just super good guy. They had done so much for the first 2 weeks or 3 getting things established and set up. And I was like, what do you need? And he'd be like, well, this is what we really, and I'm like, it was almost, the one time it was literally almost like this. It's like, well, we could, what we really need is some of those big, large, potable water tanks so that we can, you know, maybe set up showers, or, you know, we can use them for cooking or have clean water for the people coming in. And it was almost like before we were through talking, I'm getting a call, and it was actually from our nephew's church in Georgia, a gentleman, Doug, that goes to his church. He's like, hey, I'm not sure if this will be a help, but I can get like 8 potable water tanks. Would that be beneficial? I'm like, you know, at that point you're just like, it's like, you know, communication was down for the first 5, 10, 14 days, whatever. It was down a lot longer in certain areas, but communication between us and God is never down. And as we're able to communicate with Him, man, He's able to communicate, convey that to my brothers and sisters, wherever they may be. And before we even asked. I mean, how good is that? You know, so God knows, like, what a day may bring forth. Sometimes we don't know. But it is not always bad. Like, there was, and it's still bad. Like, there's some people that, we started helping this one area, Green Mountain, and probably 3 weeks ago, I went over there. It's kind of the same thing. Like, what do y'all need? What can we help with? And we was talking to, there was a pastor and his son was in there. They'd been coming in helping volunteering time, and they had just got a gentleman's water back to going that day. So this is like 3 weeks ago. And we saw, and I wish I could, if I could find it, I'd seen it, Brother Jim. There's an older lady kind of that area. She had put a post up, and she was just so grateful that she had, and this is the same way, about the same time, like 3 weeks, that she finally got her power back on. So there were so many of them still relying upon generators and the potable water tanks, or well, I tell you what, I've never moved so many 24 or 48 packs of bottled water in my life than what I did over those couple months. But you think, like, there's so much we're never going to, but there are so many people, like, they still were using that water 4 or 5 months down the road or so. So, but to say all that, like, so much bad, there's so much still going on, but at the same time, it was just so good that, like, we're in there, we're cooking, we're serving, and you got, hundreds of people coming through, you're feeding, but at the same time, you got an open ear and an open eye just to see, because that's what we should be as God's children. We should be His eyes and His ears and His hands and His feet and His heart and His we should be that for Him. So, but to hear, like, people's conversations, like, we have people, I just had a gentleman again yesterday check on me from Texas, wanting to know how we were, how things were going. He come up and volunteered for like a month. And just, we had volunteers from, I swear, almost so many different states in America. Like, the help we got was just people. Like, it was just people that had a heart to want to do and to give and to serve. And it was just such a bright light of hope in that area. Now, everyone knows when you put a bright light up in darkness, I mean, you're going to attract some strange bugs sometimes. So, I'm sure we probably attracted a few strange bugs, and that's without a doubt, it happened. But there were just so many good people that had a heart to serve, and God's people, like, just showed up in a huge way, and we got to do, I was able to do service there on Sunday nights, and as we were cooking and doing everything, you would hear people walking by, and they would say, like, this is so amazing, like, this has restored my faith in humanity, this has restored my faith in God, this has renewed my relationship with the Lord, just seeing how people have come together and have given and helped and served. And you hear stories of, like, families that have been, like, at odds and haven't spoken, and now they're speaking and they're communicating, and you hate that. Like, it takes that. So I would say, like, little pause right there, like, if there's anything in anyone's heart, like, towards anyone, or a brother and sister, or brother and sister in Christ, or anyone that's in there that has kept you from speaking to someone, or texting them, or writing them a letter, I mean, just forget about it. For you know not what a day may bring forth. Some of those people lost their lives. And some of them would. Some of them were fortunate that were at odds. You know, they get to speak to them. But I'm sure there were probably some that lost their lives that they have family now that said, man, it wasn't worth it. I wish I would have called them. I wish we would have got this thing right. So I encourage you, like, we don't know. Like, just don't, man, time is too short. Like, just put it behind you, get things right, and love one another and live your life, you know. But we did. We just tried to take that, like you heard so much people with that. It was just like so gracious and just renewed sense of hope. And they saw God through God's people and the love in action and giving and people just serving. And that's what Jesus did, man. He came just to serve, he served us. He gave of himself. He gave himself for us. And you know, we the least we can do is, like, you know, with all the love that he showed us, all the grace, all the mercy and compassion, you know, that he has shown unto me. You know, that's why we should do it. Love him, love the Lord God with all our heart, all our mind, all our soul, and then love your neighbor. And that's what we should do. And our family and our friends, and just put anything behind us and go on and love God and be a light and a witness to him. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of stop there. Went a little bit longer than expected, but anyone have any questions? Or yes, sir. And I'm bad of hearing too, by the way. Well, I hit number 2 first. If they are doing that, I sure hope that North Carolina would fall in line and do that same thing, because we want to make sure our people's taken care of. And as far as manipulating the weather, I will say this, like, if our government can manipulate the weather, which I will say, like, you know, there's questions that do come up when you see certain things going on, like, it has to raise questions. But if the government can manipulate the weather, and they can, I mean, even if they can drive it to my address in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, and dump it right on my home, I will still say this. If they can do that, then they still have to go through God. Because, you know, he is looking out for me. And if the devil wants to hurt me or harm me, just like Job, there is a hedge about me, and God will say, you can do that or you can't do that. And that, what's that? I think for the most part, most of the people that I have met, they feel the same way. They're like, well, they feel like we're God's child, and whatever that may come at the end of the day, it's in God's control. That may be. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You know, this would be my thought on that. Like, I'm sure there's different thoughts and approaches to this, but as we have gotten out, like, over, because the first 2 months, like, we were in one location just like every day, sun up, sun down. But now, like, we've got where we've kind of getting out, helping some different areas. I mean, you can drive 2 hours to Tennessee, you can drive back another hour and a half to Swannanoa. You can drive back another hour to Spruce Pine. You can go to Newland another hour or so, and it's just so widespread, and it's just so much damage in so many places, like that lady. It just can be so overwhelming that you almost like, it's just like you just give up in frustration, like I can't make a difference. So this would be my thought on that. I would say, like, if wanted to do something, find one family that maybe is really in need and just try to help get their life back as close to possible as normal. And if you think about that, like if every group almost like adopted one family in their situation, and another group did that, and another group did that, like it would start making a compound effect, and you would start giving real hope and things back to normal one at a time. Sure. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I can speak with the pastor about that, and if he's okay with kind of going that direction, I can definitely be a middle person, or I can get you directly in touch with them, however he chooses to do that. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I mean, just like my wife, I mean, she's, they think that her place of work will come back possibly May or June, and I work from homes, but for the, and I was fortunate that I was in a pretty good position to where I was able to help, but like, I'm getting to the place too where like I've got to get back to, I'm gradually trying to get back to work a little bit more each week. I was just fortunate enough to be in a position where, but you can only do that for so long. But I will say too though, but I've found it hard for me sometimes to sit back down and go to work. Shouldn't feel guilty, but it's almost like you get to the point where you feel like some self-guilt, like I should be doing more, I should be helping. But, you at some point try to get back to helping. So there is a lot that will be without jobs for a while. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. The church itself, physically, I don't think we had sustained really any damage. Like, probably some effects of the storm, maybe things that maybe we didn't see. Just like the other day, we had some really high winds come through again, and the front two posts on the church got pushed out from under the overhang of the church. So that was, I mean, it looked pretty serious, but, so there, as far as the church, I think structurally, physically, and everything, is okay. But, time will tell if there's something maybe unforeseen that we didn't realize or that nature. I think the gentleman in the back had... I would say there again, like if it were me, and I'll talk to Brother Jim, however y'all decide, I would really like, as far as like supplies or anything, at this point, because you have so many families that are, it's just some of them like they still need a culvert, so to speak, to put over the creek because their bridge is gone. You know, so I mean, some of those things are just like that. So there again, it's just so widespread. I would say to me, I would say if we could find one family and just try to, what can we do to get you back to a sense of normalcy, and just kind of like do it that way, and then you can. It's almost like taking on a missionary. You can send them support. You can see the effects of the support. You can get some updates on it and see how it's going. And I feel like that maybe would be a good way to do it. But it's just supplies may change. You know, spring is coming. You know, everyone probably got 3 winter coats, you know, from all that was brought in. So now they're maybe going to need some short sleeve shirts instead of thermals. So that may change. And if it does, we can definitely send word and let you know. Yes, sir. I agree. Now, yeah, no, I agree. But there's a lot of good organizations that have churches that have tried to establish some command centers and do that and help out. That they do. True.